sometime during the summer, early summer of 2022, Wanda and I saw where they were going to have an open house at the Shelby Airport and a fly-in on a Saturday morning. It had been years since we had been over there, so we decided to go over there. And we went over there, and over in the hangar building at the mechanic shop, I walked over there, see what was over there, and I came back to Wanda and I said, I don't know what's in there. I think it's some kind of religious organization. Well, I later found out that it is something that a lot of people don't know exists, and it's just right in our backyard here, a part of Christianity we usually never think of, and I'm talking about something called mission aviation. Now, over at the airport is a place called Compass Aviation. It's in the old city hangar over there. And the city leases that out by bid to a company. And the company's responsibility is to provide maintenance and service for the approximately 70 aircraft that are housed over there. And their responsibility is also to provide a rental aircraft for flight instruction. This company is known as Compass Aviation, and it is a 501c3 nonprofit. They operate the aviation mechanic shop and the aircraft rental business in order to raise money for their ministry, which is to train missionary pilots. Now, I guess most of us have never thought much about missionary pilots. We don't think much about missionaries anymore. Most of the mainline denominations long got out of the mission business, and what missions they have are just supporting the medical establishment now, usually. But there are, among independent Christians, a much larger group of missionaries than I ever realized possible. There are 3 main missionary aviation organizations in the United States. The largest is something called Mission Aviation Fellowship. It is in over 30 countries. They provide flight services to all kinds of Christian mission organizations throughout the world. It was started by some World War II pilots after they came back from the war, and they began to realize what a boom aviation could be to missions, and so they started this. They are not connected to any denomination, and they provide aviation services both to denominational missionaries and non-denominational independent missionaries also. As an example, we have a neighbor who is Wanda's cousin. She is a retired nurse. She has gone on many mission trips throughout the world with both the Methodist and the Baptist. One time they were somewhere down in Central America, and one of the members of their mission team got something, I don't know what it was, heart attack or something like that. And they needed to be in a hospital. Well, the thing of it was that in order to get where they were was a 2-day trek over mountains and hacking through jungles and floating down rivers and all. Mission Aviation Fellowship sent an airplane in there to pick him up. And what would have been a 2-day trek through the jungle for him, which would have been impossible, turned out to be a 30-minute airplane ride, and he would have died without that. So that's Mission Aviation Fellowship. There's another group called FNOS 360. It is a missionary organization based in Florida, and they have 2,200 missionaries throughout the world. And their mission is non-denominational, is to plant what they call indigenous churches in countries that have people who live in isolated areas. Now, indigenous means the church is run by the local people. It's not run by the Methodists or the Presbyterians or anything. It's run by the local people. So what they do, they send in a team of missionaries in an area, and if they are successful in converting people, they help a local group start a church. Then they try to get parts of the Bible translated into the local language, and that process takes years. So these people are taking the gospel into the remotest corners of the world, and to do that, they rely heavily on aviation, and Ethnos 360 has its own missionary aviation department. The third one is actually really close to here. It's just down below Charlotte. It's JARS, Jungle Aviation and Relay Service. And that, at one time, was associated, or at least connected some way, with the Wycliffe Bible translators. Now it is a missionary aviation service that serves over 100 different organizations worldwide, and it serves organizations whose main focus is Bible translation. Now, it's estimated that over 1 billion people in the United States do not have Bibles translated into their own language. It's amazing how many different languages and dialects there are in the world. We just think there's English, Spanish, German, Italian, and whatever, but there's a whole lot of little dialects in the world of people that live in isolated areas. Mission Aviation supports Christian missionaries throughout the world. And it does that by providing access. In a lot of these remote areas, you may have to cross rough and rugged terrain for days, hiking in and out, where it can be done in an airplane in a matter of a few minutes. Most of the mission work going on that is true mission work in Christianity today is going on not by the denominations, but it is going on from these independent mission groups, and it is through two things. Church planting, which means they go into an area and try to convert people and start a church, and Bible translation. Airplanes take missionaries in and out. They bring in their supplies. Missionary aviation delivers humanitarian aid. It delivers mail. It provides ambulance service, delivers medicines, delivers spare parts. It can take in supplies and things to areas that would be otherwise impossible to get in there. Christian missions throughout the world today would not exist in the form it does today without missionary aviation. It is a part of Christianity most of us don't think about. It is behind the scenes, layers removed from the mission organizations we think about. It's a part of Christianity that has never been emphasized in either one of the versions of Christianity I have been in. But it is an essential part of mission. All these missionary aviation organizations have a lot of airplanes. And they have to have pilots. And these pilots have to be specially trained. They're going to operate in remote areas of foreign countries, and many of these countries are third world countries. They're not going to have 5,000-foot runways like at the Shelby Airport with lights all around them. They're not going to have RNAV approaches into those airports. They're not going to have ILS approaches. They're not going to have anything like that. They're just going to have short little grass strips that may be just sitting on top of a hill somewhere. So these people are going to fly what's called high-performance airplane. And high performance in this context does not mean like a jet that goes real fast. It means an airplane that can land and take off in a short distance. So they're going to fly in mountainous terrain. They're going to fly in areas with high winds. They're going to fly in areas with high humidity. In addition to this, these pilots must be able to work on their airplanes if something happens to them. They don't have a mechanic to call. To be a missionary aviation pilot, you have to be both a skilled pilot and a certified aircraft mechanic. To be a skilled pilot takes at least a commercial pilot's license and an instrument rating. You also have to have specialized training in high-performance aircraft. And on top of that, in order to be considered as a candidate from one of these organizations, you have to have 500 to 600 hours of total flight time. To get all of that instruction and to get all those flight hours in this day and time would cost between $90,000 and $140,000. And on top of that, you have to be a certified airplane mechanic, and that is itself is at least a 3-year process. These missionary aviation organizations are desperately in need of pilots. As you can imagine, with requirements like that, and with the amount of money it takes to get qualified, not very many people apply. Not very many people want to go down to somewhere in the jungles of Central America and live. And to make matters worse, a lot of these countries have maximum ages at which you can do this. And so you can't go down there and do it for 40 years. You can only go down and do it until you reach a certain age. And so mission aviation organizations are in desperate need of pilots. For those who begin the process of training and application, there is a 90% attrition rate. That means 9 out of 10 either drop out for some reason or are unable to continue. And that's where Compass Aviation over at the Shelby Airport comes in. Their goal is to reduce the attrition rate, and their ministry is to train missionary aviation pilots. They are a non-profit religious ministry. They depend heavily on donations. Some of their money comes from the profits they make in the mechanic shop, but that's not enough. They depend heavily on donations. Now, what they do over there is that they let the mechanic trainees have their required apprenticeship over there. To be a certified airplane mechanic, you must not only go to school and pass a written and an oral exam, but you must do an apprenticeship somewhere. And they do that over there at Compass Aviation. And then they also have airplanes over there that they let these missionary aviation pilots fly at half price. The current going rate for an airplane, a 172 over there at IFR equipped, is $160 an hour. And so they let them use it for $80. Plus they have a flight instructor over there that is actually himself a missionary aviation pilot connected with Mission Aviation Fellowship, and their flight instruction from him is free. Plus they have a retired airline pilot over there that volunteers his time to teach some of those students too. I just wanted to walk you through this process a little bit. You first have to have a private pilot's license. That requires a minimum of 20 hours of instruction and 20 hours of solo flying. Then you have to pass a written test, an oral exam, and a flight test. Then you have to have a commercial pilot's license. That requires 250 hours. It requires you to pass another written test, another oral exam, and another flying test. Then you have to have an instrument rating, and that requires even more instruction. That requires yet another written test that you have to pass. You have to pass another oral exam, and you have to pass another flying test. Then you have to have special training in high-performance aircraft, and then you have to have just general flying experience. This is a tremendously expensive thing, and it's time-consuming. This is a longer process than getting a college degree. And so Compass Aviation tries to offer these people the opportunity to do it at a cost that is reasonable. They try to help any way they can for these people to save money on training. Compass Aviation began in 2004. The founder is a man named John Watt. He grew up in Africa, the son of missionary parents. And when they were in Africa, where his father was stationed there was a Mission Aviation Fellowship air base there. And he said that as a young boy, he hung around the hangar. And he was in the middle of doing an internship to be an A&P mechanic when the political situation in that area changed and all the missionaries had to be evacuated. Eventually came back to the United States and did become an A&P mechanic. And when the contractor to provide mechanic and plane rental services came open at the Shelby Airport, he and another man got together and put in a bid. And so they got it. And their goal is very simple: to help these young people who are going into missionary aviation. See a need, you step out and try to find a solution. They presently have 6 people over there that are in various stages of their training. And they're young people. They look like kids to us. They're in their 20s. I think one of them's probably closer to his 30s. Most of them in their 20s. And they have devoted their lives to this. They have made a decision this is going to be their life trajectory. They're going to serve in a foreign place. They're going to live their lives in a foreign country without the conveniences of life that we have. And it hasn't been long since Mission Aviation Fellowship had at least one pilot imprisoned in another country. Some of these countries are not very friendly, and if you do something wrong, they put you in prison. So sometimes they have them like that. Say you're not exactly, you're not going into Valentine and Charlotte, in other words. Now, the flight instructor over at Compass and his wife spent over 20 years in the foreign mission field, and that's where they raised their children. Last year, they went back to Africa for a while to the place where they used to be. And his wife said, I had forgotten how hard it was to live over. You can imagine raising your children. Now, your children are not going to go to some charter schools. They're not going to have all these extracurricular activities. They're not going to be able to soccer team and dance classes only. They're going to grow up in some jungle somewhere. You're making a sacrifice, not only on your part, but on the part of your family. But one thing, I think the thing that really has touched Wanda and I the most is these people have to depend on other people supporting them. Now, I know we don't think about that, but you think about this, you've got to have all this money. One guy says he needs about $2,000 a month for living expenses plus training expenses. And you have to depend on somebody to give you that. So you've got these kids, and they're going around, and they have to go around and speak at churches or groups or whatever, and try to get people to give them money. And they don't need just $20. They need money every month, every month, every month. A few of these people are married, and at least one of them has children. And then when you get through with your training and you apply to one of these missionary aviation organizations, if one accepts you, you have to start a process of raising your own support. And they have standards. You've got to get people to pledge to give you X amount of dollars per month before they'll even place you somewhere. Just one of those organizations this year increased the required monthly amount by $800. And so you've got to go to people and say, I need $800 more a month. I feel really bad about taking money here, and at least we don't ask for it. But I mean, the people give, and I'm thankful for that, but we're not asking all the time. But what if you had to do that? What if you had to go around begging for money all the time? You're going to do this for the rest of your life. You have to really admire these people for what they're doing, because they're not going to live lives like we do. John Watt told me that the major thing that they do at Compass is not the technical aspect of teaching people to fly airplanes or teaching people how to work on airplanes. It's the non-technical aspect. And he said that it is actually that non-technical aspect that is responsible for most of the 90% attrition rate. The non-technical things include getting your financial support. You've got to find enough people to be able to pledge you thousands of dollars a month for you to go off to the jungles of New Guinea or something. You've got to be adaptable to different situations. You've got to be a team player. You've got to get along with people, whether you like them or not. You've got to get along with people who are from different cultures than you are. And you probably are going to have different beliefs than you do. You can't have personal, emotional baggage from the past hanging over you. You can't have a lot of them. It is these things that Compass spends a lot of time working on with people. While mission aviation is about flying airplanes and repairing airplanes, ultimately it is about people. Because these people who are devoting their lives to this are people. And they have personal lives, they have children. And when they go to some foreign place and get based there, they're going to leave behind their parents, their aunts and uncles, their brothers and sisters, their nieces and nephews, their high school and college friends. And they're going to go over there and stay for years. They don't get to come home at Christmas and Thanksgiving. If somebody gets sick and dies over here, they probably won't get to come home. Just think about what these people are giving up. Think of the commitments these people have made. Think about the commitments they're willing to make for the rest of their lives. They're following a path that's in another world from the lives we have lived. Now, I can say from our experience from interacting with these people that they're very nice. They're very polite. It is true that they come from a version of Christianity that is a little more fundamental than what we're used to. And it is true that I probably would not agree with all their beliefs. All three of these organizations I talked about today have a statement of belief you have to sign. And I couldn't sign it. So their beliefs are not exactly like my beliefs. But you can't help but respect them because of the sacrifices they're willing to make. Are we making sacrifices? From our Romans reading today, whoever calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved. How shall they call on him in whom they have not heard? How shall they believe in him of whom they have not heard? How shall they hear without a preacher? And how shall they preach unless they are sent? There are people in the world taking that seriously. And it is my hope that with our prayers and hopefully with our finances as God sees fit, we would be able to support that.